Welcome. This is another EDH deck tech series. This is number 2 on the MTG Jank YouTube channel. So today we're going to look at Mono Blue Tunnel Vision EDH combo deck. The goal of this video series is to share original deck lists. They've been tested on MTGO and casual rooms, and they're also affordable on MTGO and ready to play. This deck currently is under $50 in paper and only 0.299 tickets from GoatBots. Our first budget series, so I'm excited to show this deck because it's very affordable. It's a Mono Blue Tunnel Vision EDH combo deck. So this deck is currently under $50 in paper and only 0.3 tickets from GoatBots. So prices shown at the time of recording, so they can be varied to change. The card prices were received from mtggoldfish.com, so this is the paper prices, and the MTGO prices were received from GoatBots. So for example, on this card, Slin Voda, the Rising Deep, this costs 0.25 cents in paper and 0.002 tickets. So who is this deck for? If you like to mill people to death, then this deck is for you. If you like control decks, if you like group hug decks, if you like to win by combo, and you like playing mono blue, and you also like playing a fake commander. So in this deck, who is our commander? You can play any mono blue commander you like. So what I meant by fake commander is that you can really choose. It doesn't matter which commander you play. You could even play some non-relevant commander because we're going to win by a combo. So these are some examples of some mono blue commanders that you can choose from. Here we have Slin Voda, Cherax, and Teferi. Cherax is great for mono blue, Slin Voda is a board wipe, and Teferi is great because it stops interaction with our combo. If you like partners, then I would recommend Glacian, Powerstone Engineer, and Brineland, the Moonkraken. Glacian can help you draw cards, and Brineland is just a bounce spell, so these can be fun to play if you want. If you like card draw, here are some mono blue commanders for card draw that you could slot in. We have Gadwick the Wizened, Azami Lady of Scrolls, Arcanus the Omnipotent, and Nezahal Primal Titan. So all of these are pretty affordable. You could really take your pick. They all draw cards. So if you have any of these lying around, you could slot it in as your commander. So who am I running? I'm going to run Thada Adel, Acquisitor. So this is a 3-mana 2/2 Island Walk, and whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you search that player's library for an artifact card and exile it. Then that player shuffles his or her library, and until end of turn, you may play that card. So in paper, this is $9, but on MTGO, it's 0.005 ticks. So it's really affordable on MTGO, and I think it's really strong. So the reason why I really like this commander is typically people play with cards like Soul Ring or Mana Crypt. So basically, on turns 4 and 5, this card can allow you to ramp with 2 or 3 mana pretty reliably. And even if you don't search for something like that, you can get a lot of value out of this card in the late game as well from your command zone. So, I would recommend this or Nezahal to choose as your commander for the deck. How do we kill a player? So in this deck, first we're going to fateseal an opponent. Then we're going to cast Tunnel Vision on them. So that's really how we kill someone. So what is fateseal? Fateseal is putting a card on the bottom of an opponent's library. Now, this effect first came from Future Sight back in Time Spiral block. These are 2 examples of the cards that we're both running in our deck. So we have Spin into Myth and Mesmeric Sliver. So both of them have when this, Fateseal 2 and Fateseal 1. So Fateseal, its controller looks at the top card of an opponent's library. He or she may put that card on the bottom of that library. So you might be asking yourself, why do we want to fateseal anyways? This seems like a pretty weak effect for EDH, right? Well, we are running this card called Tunnel Vision, and combined together, we can really mill a player to that card that we fateseal. We're going to mill their whole deck until they reveal that card that we put on the bottom. So we don't want to cast Tunnel Vision without knowing the card on the bottom, and Spin into Myth and Mesmeric Sliver, along with other fateseal-like cards in our deck, allow us to know the name of the card on the bottom. So let's look at Tunnel Vision. Tunnel Vision is a 6-mana sorcery, and it has Name a Card. Target player reveals cards from the top of his or her library until the named card is revealed. If it is, that player puts the rest of the revealed cards into his or her graveyard and puts the named card on top of his or her library. Otherwise, the player shuffles his or her library. So if we look at this, with Spin into Myth, we can put a creature on the bottom of the owner's library. Then the next turn, or actually because Spin into Myth is an instant, so we can do it on the end of our opponent's turn. On our turn, we play Tunnel Vision and name that creature, and then what they're left with is just that one creature on top of their library and the rest of their deck into their graveyard. So let's continue. The game plan. Tutor or draw Tunnel Vision and any fateseal card. So let's look at our tutors. We have 7 tutors total. We're running, these are our best flexible ones. We have Parallel Thoughts, Solve the Equation, and Noble Benefactor. Now, Parallel Thoughts is kind of a little unreliable. You pick 7 cards in your deck, you remove them from the game, but now, whenever you draw a card, you draw from this pile. So with this, you have to search for 7. So typically, whenever I play this, I'd search for 1 or 2 more tutors and some of our fateseal cards, because we have a lot of fateseal cards, and I might not search for Tunnel Vision with Parallel Thoughts, but kind of our other combo pieces, maybe some board wipes, things like that. Solve the Equation, this searches for Tunnel Vision or for a fateseal card. That's really great. Noble Benefactor, search for any card. Now this does do for each player, but in our deck, getting our combo to kill a player, they won't have time to use that card. And also there's a bit of group hug synergy in our deck, so players, they might not focus you necessarily, depending on what commander you choose. We also have Transmute. We have Ethereal Usher and Drift to Phantasms. Transmute is an effect from Ravnica block where you discard the card and search your deck for a card with the same mana cost. So here, Ethereal Usher can search for Tunnel Vision, and Drift to Phantasms can search for Spell Crumple or Hinder, both cards which counter a spell and can put that spell on the bottom of their owner's library. So, Drift to Phantasms allows us to find cards to fateseal, and Ethereal Usher allows us to find our Tunnel Vision. Next, we have some artifact tutors. We have Tribute Mage and Trophy Mage. When either of them come into play, you search your library for an artifact card. With Tribute Mage, that artifact card has to have converted mana cost 2. With Trophy Mage, that artifact has to have converted mana cost 3. So with Tribute Mage, we can search for Reito Lantern or Mer Retriever. There might be a few other targets as well, but with Reito Lantern, this allows us to fateseal a card. So this artifact looks very basic and, not threatening. It just seems like very poor graveyard removal. But in our deck, it's part of our combo. So when we start using it to go off, the opponents will be very surprised when we kill them with Reito Lantern. With Trophy Mage, we can search for Vessel of Endless Rest or Chaos Wand. Both of these cards also can fateseal. Now, Chaos Wand is a little less reliable, but it's also really fun and janky and allows us just to play some spells from our opponent's deck, which is always a good time. But if you're looking for the combo win, you can search for Vessel and you can tuck a card with it. Next, we want to fateseal the opponent. So let's go over our fateseal cards. These are our 10 fateseal cards. Now, we talked about Chaos Wand a little bit. It's a bit random. It puts it in a random order, so they might have, a few more cards on the bottom of their library than just one. So we also have Nascent Metaform. Now, this is our most expensive card for the MTGO version of the deck, coming at 0.12 tick, so that's pretty expensive compared to the other cards in the deck, but on paper it's only 35 cents, so it's very cheap. But yeah, so whenever it attacks or blocks, your target opponent reveals cards from the top of their library until they reveal a creature. And then Nascent Metamorph becomes a copy of that card until end of turn, and then that player puts all cards revealed this way on the bottom of their library in a random order. So similar to Chaos Wand, they're going to have, we'll know the name of some of the cards on the bottom, so we can mill to those cards. So we can mill most of their deck using Chaos Wand or Metamorph. Now, these other cards, if we do any of these other 8 cards, we will mill their entire deck except for that last card. So Vessel does one when it comes into play. Reito has an activated ability that we can do at any time. Junk Troller can tap to put a card on the bottom. Hinder and Spell Crumple do it by counter spells. Conundrum Sphinx is whenever it attacks, each player chooses a card name, and then each player reveals the top card of their library. If the card a player revealed has the same name, then they draw it. Otherwise, they put it on the bottom of their library. So Conundrum Sphinx most likely will put the card on the bottom. We also have Spin into Myth and Mesmeric Sliver. So what's next? Next, we want to cast Tunnel Vision. So after you fateseal, you cast Tunnel Vision on the player. And, you can fateseal different players at the same time, right? But on MTGO, you can look at your revealed card. So it's very easy to keep track of the name and see, what card is on the bottom. You just have to remember, in paper, I haven't played this deck in paper, but I assume it would be much, much more difficult, and you might want a notepad or something just so that, you can name the correct card. So next we want to, with the combo so far, when they go to their draw step, they draw the card, and they have no cards left in their deck, but they can have a turn. So in their turn, they will most likely do everything they can to hurt you. So really, what we want to do is force that player to draw a card. Because if possible, this stops them from taking their last turn, and it kills them on their draw step. Or before, if we can have them draw. So let's look at our 9 force card effects. So a lot of these might be group hug, but they can also target a single player. So we have Dictate of Krufix, Howling Golem, and Temple Bell, and Docro Mystic, and Folio Fancies. Now and Lore Broker as well. All 5 of those do each player to draw a card in different ways. Dictate, Krufix, Howling Golem, and Temple Bell are all great because after we do our combo, they will draw a card and then draw another card on their draw step and die. With Docro Mystic and Folio Fancies, we have to tap them for their activated abilities, so we have to have the mana up to do it, but those are also just as effective. We also have Lore Broker, Reckless Scholar, and Cephalid Looter. Now, Lore Broker has each player draw and discard, so that can also draw their last card. Reckless Scholar and Cephalid Looter can target a player. So normally, during the game, you will be targeting yourself with these just for filtering, but after your combo, you can target your opponent and have them draw their last card. Overflowing Insight is also a really fun card. It's just 7 mana, target player draws 7 cards. So normally we'll use this on yourself. But as you saw earlier, some of our cards like Chaos Wand or the Metamorph might put a number of cards left on their bottom. So if they still have like 5 or 6 cards, you can mill them with Overflowing Insight. So what's next? Return Tunnel Vision from your graveyard to repeat the combo on the next opponent. So after you cast Tunnel Vision, you still have maybe 1 or 2 opponents left to kill. So how do we get Tunnel Vision back from our graveyard? Because we want to continue to defeat opponents with it. So let's look at Get Back Your Spells. We have Flood of Recollection, Relearn, and Pull from the Deep. Now each of these return instants and sorceries from our graveyard to our hand. Flood of Recollection only costs 2, Relearn costs 3, Pull from the Deep costs 4, but it allows us to get a sorcery card and an instant card. So Pull from the Deep and Flood get exiled, but Relearn does not. So that's good to keep in mind. Next we have some creatures that have the same effect. We have Shipwreck Dowser, Mnemonic Wall, and Archaeomancer. Now all of these, whenever they come into play, can return an instant or sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand. So these are all commons, very bulk commons, but they're great in our deck because after we cast our Tunnel Vision, we can get it back with any of these creatures or those last spells. We also have these 2 to get back some artifacts because a lot of our artifacts have ways to fate seal the opponent. So Myr Retriever is also just a good chump blocker, so it just helps gum up the board and get value. And Buried Ruin is a land that can do it too. So, if our Reito Lantern goes to our graveyard, these are great ways to get back. So let's look at our control options. Now we are mono blue, so we will be playing some control cards to help us survive for our combos. So we're running 3 counter spells, 3 single bounce spells, 4 board wipes, and 3 spells that slow down the game to help buy us some time. So let's look at our counter spells. Now we looked at Spell Crumple and Hinder earlier. We're also running Arcane Denial. It's another card that it actually doesn't force our opponent to draw, but our deck has this group hug theme as well. So Arcane Denial fits into that while also countering a spell. So it's pretty fun. Next we have our 3 single bounce spells. We're running the classic Boomerang, double blue to return a permanent to its owner's hand at instant. So this is really, really fun. You can also do it on turn 2 to a land if you just want to get a player to fall really far behind. And that can be really funny because sometimes, certain players' commanders are very, very powerful. And this is just a way to really stop their tempo in the early game. We're also running Wipe Away and Leadership Vacuum. Now, Wipe Away is the same as Boomerang, but it has split second, so it can't be countered, it can't be stopped, so it's just very consistent. Leadership Vacuum is a card from one of the commander precons, and you just bounce the commander and you get to draw a card. So it's similar to Repulse, except, typically people are always going to be running their commander, and it also doesn't target the commander, so it gets around like boots and hexproof effects as well. We also have some 2 permanent board wipes. Now, we're in mono blue, so we can't run Wrath of God or Damnation, for example. We could run Disc of the Nevinville, but these are just some permanent board wipes. So we're running Washout and Rivers Rebuke. And Washout is great because, you just name a color, and if, let's say, two of your opponents are sharing a color, then this really hoses them. And, in some of my games, you name green and bounce all these green enchantments like Mariah's Awake and etc. And it can just really time walk your opponent when they have to, play all those spells again. And Rivers Rebuke is just like a single player Cyclonic Rift. So you just target one opponent, and this is much more fair and much more casual. But at the same time, this effect is still really, really powerful. So if there's one player who seems to have a grudge against you or you think is really going to try to kill you, then Rivers Rebuke is great for that. And what happens a lot of times playing this deck is that you'll kill one opponent with Tunnel Vision and you'll be left maybe in a 1v1 situation, and Rivers Rebuke is great. And same with Washout, because you just have to buy enough time so that you can get back your combo. And these are all, spells you can get back with your Get the Spells Back cards as well. So if you need to cast these more than once, then you can. We also have some creature board wipes. We're running Aetherize, which returns all attacking creatures to their owner's hand. We're also running Whelming Wave, which returns all creatures to their owner's hand, except for Krakens, Leviathans, Octopuses, and Serpents. So if you end up running Nezahal, Whelming Wave will be a great board wipe, but I really like to ramp for artifacts, so I've been happy with my commander, but it's always fun to try out different things. These are some cards to slow down the game. Arcane Laboratory. Each player can't play more than one spell each turn. So this card is nuts. And basically in our deck, we're really only playing one spell a turn anyways, because we can Fate Seal using our Reito Lantern or some instant speed effects. So really we just want to play our Tunnel Vision and get them, and we have certain cards, with on-board activated abilities that we can spend our mana on, or, draw and discarding with our Cephalid Looter, for example. And Arcane Laboratory is probably the card that's impressed me the most with this deck, allowing it to really win games that this deck shouldn't be able to win. Exhaustion is really great too. You just target a single opponent, similar to Rivers Rebuke, but they don't untap their creatures and lands. So, normally opponents tap out all their lands, so Exhaustion is a great way to just time walk an opponent who's ahead or, that you think is threatening. And Stormtide Leviathan has this great ability that creatures without flying or island walk can't attack. Now this stops all your, all creatures from attacking your opponents as well. So this also just slows down the game. And at 8 mana, you're not really going to get it out too often, and it does die to removal. So it's not, I think Arcane Laboratory is my top pick here. Now this is some other jank. This is a card I've always really liked, and I usually try to throw it into my decks, but this card is called Shared Fate, and this is a 5 mana blue enchantment. And if a player would draw a card, that player removes the top card of an opponent's library from the game face down instead. Each player may look at and play cards he or she removed from the game with Shared Fate as though they were in his or her hand. So basically what happens is when you play this, now whenever a player draws a card, it could be any player, you or an opponent, they choose a opponent, and they exile a card from their deck, and they can play that card. These cards that they play have to, they have to spend the right mana. They can't spend any mana. So I know we are in a mono blue deck, so this card might look strange here, right? Why are you running Shared Fate? You're not 5 color, you can't play your opponent's spells. Well, our deck is pretty janky and doesn't actually have a lot of strong cards. We're a combo deck, so we're really based on trying to get our combo. So with Shared Fate, if they pick our deck, then they're most likely just going to pick, a counterspell or a bounce or, some really weak creature. So this is a card that, even if we end up playing our opponent's deck, we can probably beat them because our deck doesn't really have good ways of winning without the combo. And if we do, have the thing in our graveyard, we can get it back, right? So it's just a really fun card. And you could also tutor for this with Parallel Thoughts if you want to play Shared Fate more often. So let's look at the ramp. Now we have 13 ramp spells in the main deck. Like I said earlier, I like running Thada Adel, Acquisitor in my deck, so I would consider her probably the best source of ramp, but if you're not running her, that's okay. This deck still has plenty of ramp. So we have some artifact ramp, Vessel of Endless Rest, Prismatic Lens, and Everflowing Chalice. We also have Guardian Idol, Replicating Ring, and Sky Diamond. Replicating Ring is really fun because once it has 8 counters, you get all these treasures. So this deck is pretty slow and is very grindy. We also have some creature mana ramp. We're running Palladium Mirror and Renowned Weaponsmith. And Renowned Weaponsmith can only be used on artifacts, but a 2-drop that adds for 2 is still really powerful in our deck. And we are running a fair share of artifacts, and it can be used for activated abilities like Reito Lantern. So this card definitely has enough value for the inclusion. We're also running Burner's Tart and Dreamscape Artist. Both of these put lands into play, so they can help thin out our deck. And we can get back Burner's Tart with some cards that I'll talk about later. We're also running some instant and sorcery mana reduction spells. We have Jace's Sanctum and Arcane Melee. Jace's Sanctum reduces your instant sorceries by 1, and you can scry 1 whenever you cast one. Arcane Melee reduces instant sorceries by 2, and this is for all players. So I have lost games from playing Arcane Melee, but I really like the group hug theme, and it helps dissuade opponents from attacking you. So, this is a card I've been experimenting with. You could take it out if it's not your slice of pie, but for me, it's something that I want to play more matches with before changing. And next we have Curious Homunculus, and this is a 2-drop 1/1 that adds 1, and once we have 3 or more instant sorceries, we can transform it. So in this deck, we're running a lot of instant and sorcery spells because it's a combo deck, so it's very easy to flip it. And once we flip it, it kind of has the Jace's Sanctum effect, which reduces our instant sorcery spells by 1. So another just powerful ramp card. Now our lands, we have 34 basic islands. You can choose whatever island you want to play. And our non-basics, we have Cryptic Cave and Rogue's Passage. Cryptic Cave, you can just sack it to draw a card once you have 5 or more lands. So, we're trying to search for our pieces. So if we run out of gas, you can just sack this and it's fine. We're also running Rogue's Passage, which can make one of our creatures unblockable, but with my commander, being able to deal the combat damage to search their deck is always good. And really, whatever commander you run, there's room for Rogue's Passage to be beneficial. We're also running Buried Ruin and Reliquary Tower. Buried Ruin can bring back a Reito Lantern, and Reliquary Tower is really good if we draw some cards. So just having no maximum hand size is just one of my favorite lands. I always usually like to run. So wrap up, this deck is under $50 in paper with Thada, under $40 if you choose the cheaper commander. Right now Thada is around $8, so you can save a lot of money if you want to go with some of the partners or just one of the other ones, even like Arcanus, for example. And on MTGO, this is only 0.3 ticks, so from GoatBot. So I always use GoatBots when I'm buying cards from MTGO, just because I feel like they have the best prices, and I've just been really satisfied. Used them for years now, and as you can see, our deck list here, we have a lot of 3-drops, so we will be tutoring and doing a lot of things early in the game. So you'll always be playing things, and this deck has just been super fun. I highly recommend it. It's kind of one of my favorite decks at the moment. That's why I really wanted to share it, because Tunnel Vision is such a fun, interesting card, and as long as your play group is okay by dying to a combo, this is a very fair and casual deck in my opinion. There's a lot of group hug, there's some removal, but it doesn't stop your opponents from doing what they're doing, So thank you for watching. This is an MTG Jank video, and like and subscribe to the channel, and thank you very much. And feedback or comments are appreciated. Did you like this video? Do you want more deck techs? Let me know. Do you want to see some playthrough with the deck? I'd be happy to share that too. So I hope you guys have a great day, and I'll catch you later.